Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm so thrilled to have in the studio with me today Neill. Michael is an international renowned thought leader challenging the cultural mythology that stress and struggle are a prerequisite to creativity and success. His best-selling books, podcasts, keynotes, trainings, and retreats have inspired and impacted millions of people on 6 continents around the world. As the founder and CEO of Genius Catalyst, Michael's mission is to unleash the human potential with intelligence, humor, and heart. He works as a catalyst, coach, and creative spark plug to CEOs, leaders, and creative artists, and anyone who wants to get more out of themselves and their lives while making more of a difference in the world. Consistently listed as one of the top 30 coaching thought leaders in the world by the independent ranking agency globalgurus.org, he travels the world sharing his message that miracles happen all the time and that a better life is never more than one thought away. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for joining me today.
I'm very glad to be here.
So great. As I said earlier, I'm so impressed you made the trek all the way out here.
I do a lot of these virtually, interviews and things, and it's fine. But actually, to get to sit down with somebody is kind of nicer. Unless, not always actually. I have sat down with some people where it isn't nicer, but in this case, my expectation is it's going to be nicer.
Oh my God, that's an expectation.
No pressure. Yeah.
No pressure at all. But now I'm intrigued. What wasn't nice about it? No, actually, we don't have to go there.
I remember when my I first started promoting books, going into radio studios, and clearly. The book was being used as like a mouse pad. Like they had never even cracked it. Oh. And I just went, this is going to just be no fun at all. But we had fun, but we just didn't actually do much to promote the book. But
well, fortunately, I've read all your books.
There you go.
See, and they're fabulous,
Thank you.
as you know from many, many people that you've touched with them. I think you've single-handedly brought the 3 principles to a much wider audience, which I think is amazing. And you've revived a lot of the interest in, I think, going to some of the original teachers as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It was not deliberate, but I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah.
Because it is. I'm in many ways an enthusiast.
Yeah.
So it's like for me, I always have just shared what I get excited about. And, fortunately, other people, when they check it out in this point, agreed with me and went, that is exciting.
Yeah. Now, you're a coach way before you came across the principles. So what was it about the principles that really changed your life?
Well, they messed me up big time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, totally.
That's
Like they challenged the fundamental basis of the work that I did without my knowing that at the time. But my work, and had you interviewed me 11 years ago, or I think it was about 11 years ago now, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have said what I'm about to say. But at looking back on it, my coaching was based on the idea that, look, you're broken. I know you're broken. You know you're broken. But don't worry, because even though you're broken, we can create a pretty good life for you. We can create a decent experience of being alive most of the time. And in spite of your brokenness, I can help you succeed. Right? That was God, never spoken, but it was me too. Like I thought of myself as an incredibly high functioning depressive who was never more than 2 weeks away from a complete meltdown, but was never going to make it 2 weeks because I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I had my behavioral Prozac that I took every day. And so to hear Sid Banks say, every human being is sitting in the middle of mental health, they just don't know it, and to really hear it. Like I'm sure people had said that to me. I'm sure I'd said stuff like that. But like I actually got that it was true when he said it. And I think that's because he actually got that it was true.
Yeah.
I think that's what impacts people is truth.
It is. I mean, I was on a spiritual path for many years, and I kept hearing that we're all equal, we all came from the same place. it didn't hit me the same as it did when I came across the principles. I
Yeah.
knew it as opposed to a concept that I wish would take
Yeah.
for,
Well, and that's continued. Like I remember actually working with Keith and Valda for years, for about a year and a half actually, because of one thing. I noticed that when I told people they were living in the feeling of their thinking, everyone went, cool. And when Keith and Valda were saying it, people went, oh. And I'm like, what the hell? We're saying the same things. And what I got over the time that I was with them, it was just that they meant it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I didn't know I didn't.
Yeah.
But I could see eventually, it's like, oh, they really see that. I think it's a super cool idea.
Yeah.
And once I got to the point where I really saw it, it started impacting the people the same way it did when they said it. And that was when I finally wrote the book and took it from there.
That's amazing. I remember Linda Pransky saying to me once, it's like, I know you don't get it here, but you don't get it here either. You get it somewhere here.
It's kind of a throat knowing.
Yeah, really, exactly. It was on its way down, thank God. But
it's working on it.
It took me a little while for it to really land as well.
Well, and sometimes it goes the other way. Sometimes people really get it here and it doesn't get all the way up here. Yeah. And so they kind of know there's something there, but as soon as you start talking about it, they're like, I don't want to hear it. But thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about genius, because that is something that I've participated with you in, is your Genius Catalyst, which was amazing on so many different levels. I learned so much about myself.
Yeah.
And again, it was through those experiential games you had us play.
Yeah.
They were just mind-blowing, I think, for everybody. So talk a little bit about that. What was the genius behind the Genius Catalyst?
Well, so Genius Catalyst is the name of my company, Genius Catalyst Incorporated. And it came from my recognition of what it was that happened to my clients when my coaching went well. Yes, it does always. Does most of the time. But I saw that there was another level inside them that came out, that came to the fore and stayed there and became the dominant energy and come from, even though, there's no permanent energy and come from in terms of everybody goes in and out. But that what was happening was and this is genius, by the way, not in the sense of intellect, but genius in the sense of that inner genie, that inner knowing, that inner wisdom that everybody has. Genius is, in that sense, it's universal. And it comes out differently through you than it does through me, but everybody's got access to it. And so for me, the fun of the work that I do is sparking that, is bringing that back to life for people that it's not been active for. And for the people where it's active in one area, but they haven't seen that it's everywhere. Yeah. So they like, well, I'm great at this, but dear God, don't let me near humans, or I'm great with humans, but dear God, don't let me near a checkbook. Or
exactly. That was mine.
Yeah, and to see that, no, it's the same genius in us. It's not localized. It's not, well, I've got a genius for this, but not for that. Yeah. It's like, no, you may have an inclination towards this versus that. You may have a preference for this versus that, but genius has no bounds. It will support you wherever you show up if you let it and if you know it's there. And so for me, that's why I love catalyzing genius. And for me, the workshops, the Genius Catalyst Intensives, the fun of them is that it's experiential. The fun of them is we can talk about this all day long, and you and I are about to. But in the end, it's what you see that's what you get.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I remember one of the first exercises we had to do was the scavenger hunt. And it was immediately like, I was, okay, so, I'm so creative. I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that and everything. But what I learned from it when my team arrived back 5 minutes late because we were all such perfectionists that we had to get it perfectly right. And we'd missed it. You'd already chose the winner. I was like, oh my God, that was the best lesson I could have had there.
And that's the perfection of it.
Exactly.
Everybody gets the lesson they need to wake up them
Yeah.
to genius, as opposed to here are the generic 12 lessons of genius.
No, exactly. It really, and they just kept coming every time we did another one of those games. It was like, oh, this is a side of myself I didn't see before. So that is the beauty of it. It really is. It's you get it for yourself. It's not about the words of someone else.
And I think for me, part of what makes it so fun is it's a return to the spirit of the work that I did before I came across the principle. So in a way, my journey has been one of seeing there was something there but not understanding it, to getting the understanding down through my neck all the way into the bones, to being so respectful of it that I try to be principally, as if that was a thing. Like, well, they sit there like that, so I shall try to sit there like that. And they refrain from swearing, so I shall try to refrain from swearing.
Oh, no, please swear.
Well,
It's the fun.
fuck. I mean, it's really hard, so thank you, because I've been holding back.
No.
But to actually go back to the energy that was what I loved about what I did, which is just, it is fun to wake up.
Yes.
It's really cool to try shit. It is really cool to create shit. It is really cool to explore shit. Like there's no point at which you go, well, okay, now let's get to the serious bit and then we can do the fun bit. The whole thing, if you let it be, is fun.
Yeah. And you bring that to everything you I've been to number of your workshops and talks now, and they are always fun. And I think it's in that sort of innocent, childlike fun that it really starts flowing.
Well, it's part of the essence of genius.
Exactly.
Right? Because kids have genius front and center. They create stuff daily. They create stuff hourly. It's not all good stuff, but you know they're infinitely creative. And I love I think it was Buckminster Fuller, who it was asked. So he was this great genius and innovator, and he had 63 patents, and he created the geodesic dome, and he did all this cool stuff. And when he was asked what the secret was to raising smarter kids, he said, "Oh, it's easy. Just don't de-genius them." And we've all been de-geniused, and it's innocent.
Exactly.
It wasn't on purpose. Nobody said, we got to kill the genius in this one.
Yeah.
But so to wake back up to it is childlike. It's not childish, but it is childlike.
Yeah. No, it is. It's beautiful. I'm just remembering, I love to paint and draw and things. I remember one of my first teachers were like, "Oh, the sky meets the ground." I was like, "No, it doesn't." And it was so wrong for drawing it the way I saw it, or I'd have cows going behind trees or off pages, and they're like, no, nothing should ever leave the page. And there's all these rules around
what
art.
What if the cow needs to pee? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
It wants to wander off to another pasture. So there were so many
Look,
rules.
Miss, it's still it's on their page. Look, it wandered off mine. It's on theirs.
Went over there.
Yeah.
I know, it's so funny. I mean, again, innocent, but when we're trying to be sort of told how it should look or what we should be doing, all these shoulds get us so uptight.
Well, and I love the honesty of some. I don't know if you've ever seen the Duggar family on TV.
Oh,
like they started out as
no,
20, 16 and counting, 17 and counting, and then it
my
became
goodness.
counting on because now it's about kind of the next generation.
Yeah.
And the one thing I kind of loved about their honesty is they talked about child raising as training, right? They were honest about it.
Yeah.
Like they're training their children. They know they're conditioning them. They know they're trying to teach them the right way to be. We all kind of wind up being subject to that, but we don't realize we've been trained because people say, no, you're free. You know, and it's like, but don't do that, and don't do that, and don't do this, and for God's sake, don't even look over there.
Yeah. And worse still, I think, is don't fail.
Well,
I mean, that's the worst one.
yeah.
I mean,
that's not going to work out so well for anybody.
Exactly. Which is, fear of failure is a massive one. I mean, we have, as you say, we're so tightly constricted as to what we should be doing and all these rules and things. So tell me more about catalyzing genius.
Well, what makes my job easy in many ways is I know genius is already there. Like it's not, well, does this person have genius? or even, well, what does this person have a genius for? It's a given. You incarnated, you get genius because genius is this universal energy of mind. It's this universal intelligence. It's this underlying formless aliveness that runs through us all.
Yeah.
So I just have, over the last 30 years, found a number of different ways of teasing it up to the surface, some of which are very gentle and very slowly, and some of which are a bit like a smack in the face. And that's, that's why I call the intensives, 3 days of loving disruption.
Yeah, I love that title.
Because that's what it is. It's I get it. I get that it's not always easy to go there. I get that it can feel a bit confrontative at times. But boy, is it worth it on the other side. And it's not that painful.
I was just about to say, I never experienced you as confrontive at all. You're more like the sort of Pied Piper. It was like, okay, we'll follow you even though it doesn't feel comfortable.
Well, and I think I'm always amazed at that people don't find it more confrontative, which is great. I mean, I'm thrilled about it. But when I hear myself in my own head, I'm like, am I really going to say that to them? But the thing is, I've always known you have to. Like, I've always known there's no value. It's not like I say everything that comes through my head, for God's sake, that would be horrible. But I recognize, and I've just learned over the years, that the biggest impact almost always comes from the things that I'm a little embarrassed to have said afterwards.
Wow.
And so I don't go looking for it. I don't try to be disruptive or controversial or anything like that. But I would never hold back.
Yeah, I hear you just trusting what's coming through in the moment that needs to be shared.
Yeah, well, nobody's crucified me yet. So far so good. Touch. I don't know what this material is, but yeah, let's hope that works too.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a bit also about you do some other programs. I know you're just about to embark on Super Coach again. What's this?
Well, this is going to be it's I think the 9th Academy. But it's also going to be the last for a while. If it's reincarnated a few times along the way. I after the first 3 times, because I'd been working as a coach since, I mean, technically 1990, but probably realistically 93 was when it went from kind of more therapy to full-on coaching. And then I'd done little trainings for coaches along the way, and I had this dream since I was probably 17 of a school where you would just get the best out of people, and it almost didn't matter what you taught. So in my mind at first it was going to be an acting school, because I thought, well, actors are already kind of open to this creating your reality stuff. It's just they don't realize that it doesn't start when they walk on set and stop when they leave set. It's actually going on all the time. So I had originally conceived it almost as a mystery school for actors. Wow. And by the time I got to a place where I had time and space to actually think about creating it, I moved on from that world, and I was working as a coach and full time. And I just thought, you could totally do this for coaches. And it would not only benefit the coaches, but then, of course, it would benefit anybody they worked with. And what has been interesting over the years is how many non-coaches come.
I was just about to say, and it's not just for coaches. No. I mean, I love that you opened it up to everybody in life that's interested in playing in this area. Yeah,
and that's been, for me, incredibly satisfying to do that. But also, I've got to stay alive to it. And so I've just noticed, okay, I'm really excited about 2020. Like, we've got an amazing group of people coming, and I've got a whole new set of things I want to play with them that I've seen since I was last with a group. But I can feel there's something new wants to come, and I got to make space. So, I mean, it's been really interesting in the past year. None of it was deliberate, but I've stopped doing the radio show after 14 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I did my last live show for that show. I'm sure I'll be back with something. But I did my last live show in September, I think. And then just this week, I've sent out my last weekly newsletter.
I heard.
So, I mean, it's not like I'm going to stop writing.
No, I know.
But I've been doing that for 19 years.
Yeah, and I love your daily rambles.
Oh, well, thank you. That's one of the new forms that immediately emerged. It was funny. As soon as I had space, I was like, I want to do this. And it was like, boom, okay, now I can.
Yeah, it really is, because I think for me, sometimes it's a commitment to sit down and read things. I mean, if I've got the time, great. But I just take you with me wherever
Yeah.
you're rambling. I'm just like...
Well, and that's what's been nice. That's what's been nice about the podcasts and and that's what people used to do with the radio show as well, is they'd download it and they'd listen to it. And I got a lot of weird comments on seminars like, you come to bed with me and my husband every evening, and you were showering with me this morning, and I'm like, that's really creepy, but I understand the sentiment.
I'm so glad I didn't go there. No, you're just there while I'm brushing my teeth.
Okay.
Nothing more than
that's
that.
harmless. That's
okay,
harmless.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I am particularly very interested in is your Emerging Voices program. Can you tell me what?
Yeah, that has been a treat. I've always had a thing for emerging voices. And what I mean by emerging voices is people who, it's very clear, have something to say, but just haven't found a way of getting it out into the world. Or sometimes they're more like me, where I always thought of myself as a preacher in search of a gospel. I knew I was really good at saying shit. I just didn't have shit to say. So I would try stuff. I'll say what you say. I'll say what you say. And it wasn't for me really until I found the principles that I suddenly had something to say. And it wasn't all about the principles, but they kind of unleashed that in me. And so I love that population. And it's funny, I was interviewing a woman for one of the series that I host, and she was talking about one of the ways what you can do very well and charge a lot of money for is where can you not meddle? Like, where can you not keep your oar out? What do you care about so much that you it kills you to not comment?
Yeah.
And for me, it's that. I see people who could be so good and who just get in their own way unwittingly and often trying to get out of their own way, but it's that horrible thing. The more self-conscious you get, the more you're falling all over yourself. Yeah. And so it was really funny. What happened was I was speaking at a conference, and one of the other speakers was almost brilliant, but wasn't. They were okay.
Yeah.
They were fine, but they could have been amazing. And it was killing me. And I had my team with me, and I said, okay, I want to do a program where I want to take people like that and I want to work with them for 6 months, and I want to get it so they don't do that anymore, and that they do. And that was the birth of Emerging Voices. And now we're in the middle of the second group, and we've got another group lined up. We've got dates for next year, which we'll be announcing in about a month. And it's quickly become one of my favorite programs because it's so visible, the results.
Yeah.
You can watch people emerge, and that's so satisfying.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm very excited. I put my name in.
Nice.
They keep me posted.
Excellent.
Yeah. I am very aware of my that I want to become less self-conscious and more conscious. But that self, oh my God, it can be a pain in the ass.
Well, only if you listen to it.
No, I know.
I mean,
Mine's pretty persistent. So I'd love to finish off with a little bit of the creativity. I was listening to the show you did with Jason Shears, and it was so beautiful about creativity. So can we? Yeah,
well, because creativity is the heart of thought. Like, thought is the nature of creativity. We are these infinitely creative beings who create the same 7 things over and over and over again and live inside them as if they're fixed.
7?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm making that
joking.
up. But it is a fixed number.
Yeah.
It is, these are the givens, which I don't see that I've created. I forget that they're made up too.
Yeah.
And then within those givens, how do I succeed? Like, within look, it's a given that it's going to be hard, and it's a given that I'm not really the best person for it, and it's a given that I'm never going to get that successful. Now, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Well, that's not creativity.
Exactly.
That's basically, I'm going to tie one arm behind your back and you have to punch your way out of a wet paper bag. It's not even that much fun. Whereas to find that place of pure possibility, to come from nothing again and again and again, to reach your hand into the hat and know that you're going to pull something out, but you don't know if it's going to be a rabbit. You don't know if it's going to be a business. You don't know if it's going to be a partner. You don't know if it's going to be a new idea that changes the world. You get to a point where you can't wait to put your hand back in the hat. And that is the relationship with creativity that I do my best to foster in people, to kind of get to the point where you get, this is where everything cool comes from.
Yeah.
So the more you can go back to it, the more comfortable you are in it, the more familiar you are with it, the more creative you'll be, the more creative your endeavors will be. But not just creative, fresh. Like fresh is one of my favorite words.
Oh, I know, me too.
Because so much creativity is stale. It's either an idea you had that's kind of run its course, but you're still milking it, you know, or it's somebody else's idea. Well, that did really well, I'll copy it. And to my mind, it's not that you can't make money that way, but it's not sustainable. And that's why people are always going, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Because it's like, I can only sell stale Girl Scout cookies so many times before I've got to find something else to sell.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can bake fresh cookies every time, I'm good.
Now, were you always, because I'm always struck by your creativity, constant movement, constant fresh thought. Just even listening to maybe, you know, for right now, super coaches sort of, you know, for whatever reason, let's sort of hold that for a minute and let's explore other things. Were you always like this? Were you always like playful and always constantly sort of had this access to this energy that runs through all of us, but most of it, as you say?
Well,
you know.
funnily enough, I think I was, except for the fact that I was so self-conscious and so depressed and so uncomfortable in my own skin that it only came out when I was drunk, or if I knew you really, really well, or on the third Thursday of the month, or whatever day that month I wasn't depressed. So it wasn't, I don't know if people who didn't know me well would have described me that way at all. But actually, yeah, that's always been that love of creation, of watching things come into being. I can't remember a time where that didn't excite me. I just can remember a lot of times where I was way too scared of everything to let it out.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I was listening to something, I don't know if it's on one of your morning rambles, but about, you know, writing, like deciding, I think you mentioned something about having a thought, maybe, well, I'm not in the mood to write, I've got nothing good to say. But rather than just sort of let it end there and not do the writing, just start writing and see what happens.
Well, and that's, again, it's one of the big misunderstandings about creativity, is we think we need to be in the right frame of mind to create.
Yeah.
And we just don't. And it's obvious if you, and look, one of the reasons I think so many artists struggle is because they think they have to feel a certain way. But what the only obstacle, as far as I can tell, to pure creativity is self-consciousness. Yeah. And so that's why so many artists do drugs, because it's how they get out of their heads, quite literally, so that creativity can flow. Now, the good news is you don't have to do that, right? One of the things that most people who start to see anything true about the principles start to experience is, oh, I'm not a victim of these thoughts. I don't... Just because I have self-conscious thoughts doesn't mean I have to actually pay attention to them. And you know, and so instead of self-consciousness feeling like a real wall that you have to climb or overcome or shatter, it's just like, yeah, sometimes I think too much about me and then my creativity kind of gets stifled and then I don't and it flows. Yeah. You know, it's pretty simple.
No, I know. It's so beautiful. Oh, God, I love this understanding. I used to take it all so seriously. Yeah. Now I observe it and I'm thinking... You're visiting again. You're hanging around a little longer, but you know. It's
one of my favorite one-liners that ever came out of me. Was that's the ones I repeat are the ones that make me laugh when I hear them come out of my mouth. But I was talking to somebody once and I said, look, you can either entertain your thoughts or you can let your thinking entertain you. We're all going to think, right? We're not going to not think. We're not going to magically live in silence all the time. Though it does get quieter. but But it's only when we take our thinking seriously. It's only when we think, oh my gosh, yeah, oh yeah, no, good point. Yeah, boy, it really does suck. Oh wow, they really are awful. Oh my God, yeah, I'm really terrible. Like that's when we fall to pieces.
No, exactly.
It's not thinking those thoughts.
No, exactly.
It's taking them to heart.
We didn't mention the creating the
Creating the
impossible.
impossible.
Maybe have a minute or two to mention that one.
Sure.
Because I'll be joining you in January for that.
Nice.
So give a little bit of background of what that is too.
Yeah. So I, back in 2009, noticed that I would say about half the people I asked what they wanted, they said, a little bit more money. I'd like my marriage to not suck so much. I'd like to be less unhappy. Like their goals were pathetic. Like, I don't mean pathetic as in you shouldn't want those things, but it's like, really, that's your big dream, right? And I had a conversation. So I actually wrote about this in my first book with a cab driver named Adolf. So I was in the back of a cab in Chicago, and this was when I was still performing, and I was in a sketch comedy troupe, and we'd done a late night show in Chicago, and it sucked. Which is defined by people didn't laugh very much, which if you're a comedy troupe is problematic. And so I get in the back of this cab, and I'm kind of low, and I'm going to go to a friend's house and just chill out. And the cab, it starts to snow. And I come from the East Coast, but I've been living on the West Coast for a long time. And so I was like, oh, it's snowing. And the guy literally slammed on the brakes and turned around, and I thought he was going to throw me out of the cab, which after midnight in the middle of nowhere in Chicago didn't feel like a great idea. But he didn't. He just started talking to me and telling me about his life. And he was from, gosh, I'm going to say Gambia, but I don't remember. He was from an African country, and he'd been over for 10 years trying to raise money, and he had a story. And we wound up pulling the car over and just sitting there for a couple hours talking.
Wow.
He turned the meter off. It was very, very legit. But what was interesting is I asked him what his big dream was. And I saw it. I saw the whole thing in his eyes. I saw his big dream. I didn't know what it was, but I could see that he was looking at it. And then I saw him realize that he couldn't have it. And then he said, I don't have a dream.
Oh.
And I'd just seen it too many times. And I said to him, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And once we got past it, he wanted to learn how to build houses the way Americans build houses, so he could take that back to his village, so he could build houses for the people in his village. It was cool.
Wow,
it was super cool. He said, but it's impossible. And I was like, what does that have to do with it? and that was the birth of creating the impossible. And so 2009, for the first time, I just said, let's just take as a given it's impossible. What do you really want to create anyways?
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've got so many cool stories over the years from people who've just set out to do things that, well, it's impossible, but I'd love it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you find out so much more is possible than you think.
That is a beautiful note to end on.
All right, then.
Pretty profound, but so true. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming all this way and being with me today. It's been wonderful.
A pleasure.
And I look forward to seeing you in the future.
A pleasure. Thank you.